meeting is being recorded.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting of the School Building Committee to order. Today is Thursday, May 25, 2023. Thank you all for joining us. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the May 11 minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Kathy, thank you. Is there a second? Mary, thank you. Any corrections or updates to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, then all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. And any opposed or abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay. That brings us then to the opportunity for public input. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the building committee? Seeing none, we'll move on, and that brings us to the superintendent's update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. We're approaching 5 weeks in the new building, and again, making all of those adjustments, and the transition is going well. We still consider it a bit of a soft opening, right? We're learning more and more about the building, adjusting to the ecology, if you will. You know, how does the living sphere interact with the building? And so all goes well. I continue to get great feedback from the community. We just completed our last community tour on Friday. Thank you to Chris for helping out. We had our largest group, and we had well over 200 community members attend. And many were just so impressed with the design, with the net zero, and the 21st century learning aspect of the building. I know the bit of the elephant in the room is the news that our principal, Lauren Rodriguez, had put in her intent to resign at the end of the year. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Lauren for her leadership. This has been a 2-year endeavor. I always use the phrase that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and certainly MES will move forward standing on Lauren's shoulders, knowing that she spent a lot of time thinking about how to best transition and consolidate 3 small elementary schools, taking small individual schools with independent autonomous thinking and building a landscape that matriculated, if you will, into MES of today. And we're still benefiting from all of that careful work that she did that started 2 years ago. And then most recently really oversaw a very complicated, layered transition from Vinton and Goodwin campus into the new building. So just a huge shout out to her, and I wish her best. She's committed to helping us. She will continue to be a friend of Mansfield, and certainly will earn that emeritus status with us. I want to just give a little feedback, and perhaps Adam and the team can pick up. I know the last time I had talked about noise, and continue just to hear conversations about noise level. I know the playscape is of concern, and it looks like we are on track maybe to address some of the elements next week. And we'll continue to update the community as best I can. But it looks like the footings and resetting many of the structures will have to wait till after school. And it will time out nicely in a sense that we have to pull the wood chips before the rubberized surface. And so I imagine those things will happen together. The kitchen continues to be a bit of a challenge with the dishwasher in particular. I know Mariah has reached out to Bill and the design team, just asking for help to look at how to best utilize that dishwasher without it tripping or failing, so that we can use the reusable trays. Right now we're using way too much paper and plastic. And then I just recently saw a note from Lauren regarding more construction debris, you know, the small little nuts, bolts. She did indicate that there are a couple of razor blades that have been located, And so again, maybe another magnet. I imagine some of that stuff works its way up through wood chips and plantings, but if perhaps we could get Newfield to do that again, that would be helpful. And that's my report.
Okay, questions for Peter?
I have a question when you have, go
Chris.
ahead. Okay. Peter, does any of that get formally presented to Newfield? I mean, this debris, this has come up again and again. We spoke about it calmly and very early before the kids were there. And then since this is the second time, at least I've heard of it.
Yeah, so there was just another email today with the right people on it. And I felt like we had a positive response last time that we brought that up.
Okay.
I just think that these are a lot of smaller pieces that are being located. So I don't think it's a one and done. I think you just have to constantly go over it. And as the landscaping kind of changes and things are growing, we may need several kind of sweeps, if you will.
Just to jump in, this came up at the last owners meeting on site with Newfield, and they had done one sweep. But when this came up again, and just asked them again today to do another sweep. To Peter's point, sometimes things percolate up, or wood chips, or mulch, or dirt gets moved around, and things become uncovered. So they were responsive last time, so I don't anticipate trouble with them coming back out again to do another broad sweep.
Okay, Tony?
Who leaves razor blades on a playground?
I imagine it's just part of construction debris. I don't think it's of ill intent. There
No,
could be-
but to leave them is, when you know there are going to be children playing there, is really bad.
Agreed.
Is that where they were? It was on the playground?
Sorry.
Was that on the playground or was it elsewhere?
I don't know the exact location. I know many of the things that I saw were not in the playground, but they were along the walkways and near the edges of the building.
So did I misheard you did I mishear? I thought you said there were razor blades in the playground.
If I said that I don't know particularly. I said that there
Okay.
has been debris found on the playground. I don't know what that debris was. It could have been the razor blade, could have been nails, bolts, screws. There have been a variety of things that students and staff have located. There have been no injuries whatsoever. Kids have been instructed, just to report it. But as staff, collects this, they report it to Lauren, and she has shared with us.
Maybe they need to not put these chips back down, but put fresh chips down.
Well, you mean to remove them now and put another bed of chips down?
No, but when they remove them, don't put the same ones back down.
No, there will be a rubberized surface, and so it's a one life. They will then be moved, and I think they are owned by Newfield, so they have plans to move them off site.
Go ahead, Mary.
I don't know if my question is probably not best for Peter, but I'm surprised to hear about the dishwasher, and I'm wondering if that's something that's, what's happening? Is that a warranty item? Is that a wire? Like, what's the issue? Can anybody speak to that?
I can start, and then I know Bill can. There's a 90-degree turn in the washroom, and that 90-degree turn when the trays are going in seems to get caught and it trips. There are a lot of different safety mechanisms on this dishwasher for good reasons. And it's a little bit of operator error, learning how to use the machine. But the design seems really, really tight. And because of that 90-degree, it just makes it very difficult in a very short period of time to wash a lot of trays. They're struggling to find room for drying once they wash them. And so, you know, I had Lauren actually washing pans the other day, and I know Bill was in there. We're doing our best and trying to better understand how to do this and how to reset it when needed. But the number of trips and problems that they've had with it has just put a huge flag into this. It's not feasible to run 5 waves of lunches and expect a food service team to turn it around.
If I can add a little, Bill should say something too, but in addition to the whatever operational kinds of things, it's functionally had problems. When I was there, it started up and then the, I don't know, was it a gear or a shaft actually had, in a spring came undone and so forth. It was not operating properly. It was not the operator at all in the case I saw. It was actually the device itself was not functioning properly.
So to touch on these, there's been a couple of pieces of communication this week about this because there's been a couple of known issues about some of the kitchen equipment, for example, some sharp edges that got filed down on one of the pieces of equipment, but as they've been using it, more has come up. So I know that Jeff, you communicated with your food service designer earlier this week to coordinate with the town, as well as the manufacturer, Lancaster through Newfield has been reached out to yesterday to talk into some of these items. So as it's been coming up, it's been communicated.
So Adam, as far as you're concerned, is Lancaster coming out a particular day or anything? Because I like to have Dick there.
Yeah, this just came out yesterday from Ben. So yes,
Okay.
Dan and Dick should go together and talk about it at the same time.
All right. And
I'd like to really know that it's being chased down hard because this is not, it didn't just start yesterday or even the day before yesterday that these mechanical problems were going on. This is when I saw it, it was at least last week, and it was a serious mechanical problem. But I'd like to hear what Bill has to say if he can add anything.
yeah,
as well.
I'm quite surprised. I'll just say this. I'm quite surprised because my kitchen consultant has never worked with these guys before. And I know in the past, if anything ever comes up, that manufacturer's right out there fixing it. So I'm wondering and very concerned why Newfield isn't lighting the fire under these guys and getting them out there. But I'll work with Adam. We'll get to the bottom of it. I don't like this at all. So
No, it's very bad.
I don't know if Bill if he's able to hop on and speak to what facility knows about. I was just going to say that by running into some of the folks that work in the kitchen later in the week, the first week of school, I know that basically I was told that, every day, the first day that the dishwasher was down and not working. So sounds like a pretty serious problem.
Yeah,
And
well-
alarming, as Peter started off by saying, it's been 5 weeks. Many times throughout this building process, we've all equated it to, well, if you've built your own home, if you've remodeled your kitchen, who among us would allow for something to be installed into our personal kitchen? Forget a kitchen of the magnitude and the time of day that it's being utilized. We wouldn't allow that to go on for 5 weeks. This is completely unacceptable. People, they shouldn't be dealing with that.
So what I know about the dishwasher is a lot of it is the 90-degree turn that comes in there seems to be jamming the trays as they come around the outside of the 90-degree. And when that happens, that's when it jams the motor and pushes it aside and undoes a coupling. There's been numerous things that have, for me, gone wrong with this piece of equipment since they started using it that first week. I don't think it's any operator error either, so.
Okay, well, we'll get kitchen consultant. I don't know if the manufacturer can be brought in, but we'll get the right people out there to try to fix this once and for all.
I know they've been out there, I think 2 to 3 times to look at it and do some adjustments and all that kind of stuff too. But it doesn't seem.
The manufacturer?
the, one of the installers that work on it.
Okay.
Bill, is there room, or is there a way to eliminate the 90-degree turn?
Not in that space. I mean, it would have to be laid out a different way somehow.
Okay, let's get the professionals on there.
Is,
Go ahead, Tony.
is this the right machine for this school?
Jeff, have you used this manufacturer before?
I have to refer to Dick on this. I know he hasn't used these guys before, and he had some concerns going into this because usually the guys that he's used to working with will, on a dime, be out there and do what they need to do. So I'm quite surprised to hear this. I'll reach out to Dick and get him out there, and we'll look at it from different sides of the fence and figure out what parts manufacture, what we can do. If it's a 90-degree issue, then the design has to be thought about. But my suspicion is it's sort of tooling the speed at which these things are turning and how they're getting into the thing. So it sounds to me like this whole unit needs to be looked at.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and just before we move on from Peter, I do want to say thank you to Lauren from the building committee perspective. Lauren has been great to work with. She worked well with the design team, with Newfield. I mean, she was in touch with them a lot. And I've known her. I was on the committee when we hired her back when, and it's just been such a wonderful person, and I wish her the very best as she moves on. Okay, then we will move on to I guess it's the contractor and architect and OPM update. So I don't know, Adam, if you wanted to lead out, or
Yeah,
we don't
sure.
have a contractor here.
That's fine. In terms of outstanding work, there's been a lot of setup work coming into the next week or two, especially as we get into before the ribbon cutting, sorry, and leading into start of school, or the end of school rather. So in terms of site work and things of that nature, the big focus obviously still in the drainage basin. We just got some additional input from the town engineer as to what a long-term solution that they might want to implement might look like, different than what the original design might be. So that's getting reviewed with the town and with TSKP and their consultants, as well as some of the other areas. Some of the plantings need to be taken out because they didn't survive. So the Richter Sieg and the landscape architect made some comments there, and Newfield's coordinated to get those replaced. In terms of the playground, that's started to the next week. There's the manufacturer's installer coming back out to start the rework on that. Some of the components getting replaced. As Peter alluded to, a bulk of the work that's not pertaining to the footings and the surfacing is scheduled to be completed the week of June 6th or June 5th rather, with the bulk of the actual site work, if you will, once school is out, because that's going to involve any machinery to come out and place the rubberized surfacing that couldn't be placed prior to the getting too cold over the winter. There's also been some follow-up on some of the items that were brought up.
Question, just a question from Steve.
Yeah, with regard to the playground, we had issues with the install before. The stuff wasn't lining up correctly. We had an issue with getting a person to get out there to fix all that. And I'm really concerned that this was double or triple checked by multiple parties and it was still not installed correctly. So I think we need to think about a different way of doing this, not just relying on the people that have not done it right twice already.
This is a different installer. The individuals that did the initial installation are not doing the repairs. The actual manufacturers and their vendor came out to do it, not Newfield's subcontractor. So it is a completely different team, and it's the manufacturer responsible for what the specifications are. They personally were contacted to come out and resolve it. and do the, as part of the inspection to ensure that everything was the way it's supposed to be. So the project team agreed with you completely to not have it just be the same person to come out and do it again.
Great, thank you.
And
Ryan, and then Chris.
Thanks. I just wanted to, Adam, do I have it right that, so when the apparatus, the playground, the playscapes originally went in, that the party, the contractor, the outfit, whatever, that was the certified inspector, I think that's the right term, certified inspector of record, that entity is involved this time around, but in a different role. They are a third-party reviewer. There's a different certified inspector as well. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so for everyone's background, the inspector that was retained by the town to go over the finish installation, he did his review of the available surfaces. I forget the name of the actual certification that he does, but it's a standardized process as part of insurance claims and things of that nature. In this most recent inspection, and to go back, as part of his inspection, there are a number of items that aren't visible when you go do your walkthrough. In the same way that if you were to walk through a building, you wouldn't be able to see behind the walls and see every single screw and nut. There are components to some of these pieces that, if they're underground, if they're within the apparatus itself and you can't see them, he doesn't go around and check every single bolt to see if, put a torque nut on it, make sure it's got Loctite, etc. When the issues were observed and the inspection crew was called back out, he was there to review what the manufacturer was doing to make sure that they weren't, lackadaisically suggesting that there weren't issues or anything of that nature. So he was there serving in an oversight capacity on the town's behalf, in addition to just project team members, to ensure that the actual inspection process was thorough and went through every single component as opposed to a gloss over.
Hey, Chris.
my question is, who pays for all this? This is now the third, at least the second go around. Where's the money coming from?
For the actual vendor to come out and fix it, that's all done through Newfield. The towns, as I mentioned, the town having this inspector come back out to do sort of the oversight role. Right now, it was a $250 quote to come out and do that because he didn't have reports. He was just providing oversight. And that's be something that we'd request back from Newfield.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I guess we can move on then, Adam. Continue with your report.
So some additional pieces, there was some follow-up on some of the concerns that Rich had mentioned at the last meeting with regard to some of the HVAC systems. The mechanical engineer and the commissioning agent were reviewing some of the data in the mechanical systems, identified some set points that were a little low. So they're working to get those adjusted. I haven't heard on the official word on the whistling tea kettle noise yet, Rich. So I just reached back out to get some information on that. They were discussing it, but the first thing was they wanted to touch the set points on the cold end rooms. So that's being coordinated. Additionally, some of the other work that has been requested, the changes to the sensor room, for example, those are getting ordered for delivery. By and large, as we resolve some of the site items over the summer, it then gets down to project closeout. Closeout does take a longer than anyone would like, a period of months, and quite frankly, with some of the end closeout materials that a year after substantial completion and some of the state auditing, this goes on for months and months and months, and usually over a year. But the big item that people tend to want to know is when the project is over, in terms of punch lists and all these things, all the things that have to be done. And in terms of that process, what would happen is Newfield would submit their applications for payment indicating all the things they've done, and then Jeff and the design team would go out and verify that all the punch list items were complete as part of certifying that application. Newfield hasn't submitted that application for payment yet. So that's why we don't have the final re-review of the punch list complete. And there's been some correspondence from Newfield this past week about some unresolved PCOs and money-related contractual items that need to get resolved before we can close out that money component. So those are items that have come up over the past week that have drawn focus, and that we're looking to resolve in the next couple of weeks to move on towards getting some of these cleanup and closeout items done. Any questions on any of that?
Steve?
Not specifically on that, but we had staged a lot of material at the town transfer station in the back of Lions Field. Do we have a plan for that stuff? I don't know if it's fill or topsoil or.
There was some, it's been a couple of weeks, but there was some communications between Ben and the town engineers about that materials. And I know at the last owners meeting, there was there's a request to look at some of that information, but as I said here, I don't know what the answer is, what the resolution was, but it has come up recently.
Tony?
Adam, you said there was a series of things that were still being talked about with Newfield. Can you give us some idea of what some of those are?
Some of them involve things like the delay. The DOAS delay has never been incorporated into the contract because there hasn't been an agreement upon what the extension of days would be, for example. There's also components of work that some of the subcontractors have come back and said that they feel should be an additional cost. There are also, as you can kind of see tonight, there's some PCOs that are being reviewed for work that was agreed on, but needed to get clarified in terms of what the costs were before putting it forth to the town. So it's a spectrum of items that range from valid additional work to additional work with requested costs to claims for extension to the contract dates.
Thank you.
Other questions for Adam? Tony, go ahead.
Just a gigantic ballpark number. What is the cost of, how much money are we talking about in these negotiations?
The amounts requested by Newfield across the various items total just about $1 million or so. Many of these have been either previously rejected or are in the middle of negotiations. So it is not $100,000 and it is not $3 million. But that's the sort of the flavor of what we're talking about. There are additional considerations also in terms of town requests, potential requests for credits and things of that nature. But that's around the general ballpark if we're talking very, very large rough numbers.
Thank you.
So next steps, TSKP has reviewed them and give their response.
Yes.
Yeah.
So per the contract, TSKP as the architect does an initial interpretation of these items. And then Newfield and the town review them to determine if they agree, don't agree, want to negotiate, want to continue the process further, etc. So this is the sort of the very early stages of cleaning up some of these items that have lingered.
Ryan? This might actually be a question for Jeff. I know TSKP's report comes next, but where are we at? What's the latest thinking or investigation or troubleshooting with the issues with the acoustic panels and trying to address the what appears to be pretty significant sound issues in the cafeteria?
Yeah, I think the next step, I think Adam and I were going to go visit around the time the third graders are in there. And I have reached out to Mark Reber, from Jaffe Holden, our acoustics consultant. He doesn't understand it. My first initial thought was that when you paint the acoustical panels, when they're paintable, which is what we have, if you don't paint them properly, you say you use a brush or you use a roller, you fill the pores of the acoustics. So I've been trying to find some photographs. I've asked Newfield and Ben, which they've been kind of reluctant to give me, what the process was that the painter used to paint those acoustical panels. Plus, the other thing that I started thinking about is the mezzanine has that felt in the acoustical wood ceiling that was helping to contribute. to the sound there. And I know that there's been some back and forth early on in my punch list about them using a thinner felt and not the one that we had specified. So there are sound bats above. So I think first step is Adam and I'll take a look, and then we'll have to figure out when to get Mark out there and, figure out what we need to do. But as far as he's concerned, everything should be fine. So there's something going on. So we'll have to get to the bottom of that and figure out what the remedy is.
Chris?
Jeff, one other thing I remember vivid, at least the memory is vivid, whether it's real or not, I don't know. The early renderings of the ceilings looked a lot more like tongue and groove panels, or tongue and groove paneling, or wood pieces, and we ended up with flat, what I guess is birch plywood. I'm wondering if that was part of his calculation and where that got, if not changed, if it ever was changed, if it, maybe in the plans it was always to have the plywood. But again, I very clearly recall seeing classrooms with more plank kind of pieces of wood rather than plywood. So that would be something to look in. Maybe you've got a comment on that already. I don't know.
Well, I think what usually happens is Revit's very different than the rendering software that we use, Lumion. So what we usually do is that we will actually import. Actually, I think we had a Chinese renderer do these. Anyway, so there's different rendering techniques, and depending on how much detail that you have in the model, and within the model, there are things called families. So if we do a certain type of ceiling that might be from a manufacturer that actually has a 6-inch plank system with a 1/2-inch joint, then we can use that. I think from the beginning, we've always had the plywood panel that's there in the drawings as the feature in the main cafeteria and the classrooms. And that's why we have recessed acoustical panels on both sides of the classroom walls, recessed into the wall, so you don't see them popping out. So, I mean, from day one, we've always had those, 2.5 foot wide, just a butt joint sort of maple veneer whitewashed ceiling panel there. So I know that early on the logic was when we got the report back from Mark that we had to fill that cafeteria around the whole mezzanine, around the whole band. Everything that we have right now is what was required to do, including the acoustic wood ceiling at the mezzanine that continues around with the felt in between and the sound bats above. So my initial reaction is I want to understand more about how they painted these things. And then I want to get, Adam and I there to check and, just be there during that time. And then I'll take some photos of the pores of the acoustical panels, and I'll get on the phone with Mark and figure out what we need to do. So Adam, you and I need to figure out when we're going to go there soon.
Yep, I'm calling you tomorrow about that.
Oh, by the way, I was there this morning, looking at the stone wall cap. I'm getting tired of looking at that thing not completed. I'm actually tempted to do it myself, but I called a buddy of mine. He's in Columbia, and he just did a whole outdoor stone patio landscape for some UConn faculty friends of mine, and it's beautiful. He's a perfectionist, so I called him up, and I got his website and phone number if anybody needs it. It's James Blair Landscape and Design out of Columbia, and he might be interested. I went out there and measured and took some pictures for him. It looks to me like the wall, I want to talk to Ben. He said that they had built it so it tapers up to 16 inches so that an 18-inch cap will have a little bit of an overhang for a drip edge so snow and ice doesn't get into the wall itself and start to explode the wall over time. When I measured it, it was actually 19 inches. So an 18-inch cap would not fit with what Newfield built there. So we're going to have to do a 20-inch wide cap. So I called him up this morning after I did the measurements and told him get the estimate for the 20-inch cap. And he's going to look for the granite, 2 inches thick, and he's looking for longer slabs. He's going to go out there in the next couple of days, and then he's going to give me an estimate. So I'll forward that on to everybody once we get that. So it looks like we might have an option to complete that thing. So we just need to maximize the credit back from Newfield on the cap, because 18 inches wouldn't have worked anyway with their credited sort of cap. So we got to figure that one out.
Okay, Adam, you got other items?
No, I don't, unless there's
Oh.
another question. I've got the PCOs and invoices.
Maybe as long as we're on the topic, in terms of meeting schedule for next month, do we know if we need to do 2 meetings yet?
At this point, I don't think there's anything particularly pressing for, I think it would be the 8th would be the next meeting. If the committee wanted to elect to pare back down to 1 meeting for invoices and any other PCOs and that kind of thing. If there's something under 10,000, there's the ability to approve it on an expedited basis still. So there's an opportunity for that.
Okay, so I see 2 hands, Rich and then Kathy. If Rich is your different topic,
Pardon?
I don't know if you have a different topic or if it's about. this.
Well, it's all about the architect update. We mentioned, the cap and all the other stuff. I was wondering, has anyone had a chance to look at the classroom doors where they've been shipping?
That's on my item to look at with Jeff when we walk early next week.
Okay, I would suggest that look at most critically, I think, at the art room door. That seems to have chipped a lot more than the others, which is concerning since we've only been here 5 weeks.
Yeah, it sounds to me like something's delaminating in that door. May have gotten a faulty door. So Adam, yeah, we'll have to look at that. The new field should be, put on notice to either replace the door or if that other one's fixable. I don't know. We'll have to look at it when we get there.
Okay, then Kathy,
I'm just not comfortable hearing all of the things that are from the kitchen to the cap to the doors, waiting another month to hear what's going on. I don't mean to stick everybody with another meeting, but I'm just not comfortable at this point in time. I think there's too many critical pieces here. I know eventually over time, things are going to work out, but right now I think it's important that we hear it and that we can get it out to the community, and just not having a meeting, I just don't think is acceptable.
okay, well, we can plan on the regular schedule then.
Is Newfield online? Can we get them to
They're
see
not-
if they can be
not
proactive
on.
with this stuff? Okay.
Well, they have not joined the meeting. Right.
I just want to echo what Kathy said. I agree completely. We had talked last week, I'm sorry, the last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. And I feel like too many of those things now, it's been 2 weeks and we still don't have an answer for that. So to wait a whole nother month, I am not comfortable with that either.
And I concur.
Okay.
Randy, if I
Yeah,
may
go
again,
ahead.
I would actually like to hear immediately if folks are going out next week to take a look at the playground, if this kitchen issue, which is a nightmare, if anything's being done about that, I think the committee should be informed.
Excuse
By
me. I'm
email.
on the phone with Ben at Newfield. He's trying to get on. These guys are trying to get on. Let me put you guys on hold and figure out how to get him a link to get on. Hold on a second.
So in terms of the playground, there's a lot actually that has happened since the last meeting in terms of getting everybody out there and figuring out exactly what the problem was. It's just that the schedule for the fix is really coming up in early June. Is that right, Adam?
Correct. The inspection was on the 12th, which would have been a day after the last meeting.
Yeah, Peter.
If I may make a suggestion for Scott and Adam, it might be helpful to create a tracker of these issues just so that we have a shared document, kind of like the top 10 list that we had working. Might just be helpful to track the dates and times. And then if it was a shared doc, it would be easy enough to update the building committee on off weeks or in between. Thank you.
We can do that. That's no problem.
So I just got off the phone with Ben. He can hear everything. He just can't talk because he's on his phone. Something's up with so he's taking notes. We're going to touch base tomorrow. So he's hearing you guys.
Tony?
I think the idea of a regular updated record is really important. We can't make any decisions outside of this meeting, but for information purposes, I think it would be extremely important, particularly since there are other organizations that meet and we get questions and we don't know how to answer them. The more information we can have on what's going on, the better. I also want to say one other thing, and we've been focusing so much on problems. I think it's important to say this is the safest building in town. It is probably the only building in town that even has a promise of being energy efficient. It still is the best school we've ever had from an educational perspective and every other way. It's so easy to get bogged down in the problems that we forget the actual achievement that we have overseen. So I think as we talk about the real irritants, we've got to keep coming back to the good stuff. This is still the best working school we've ever had.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Tony. I ask my daughter every day, how's everything going at school? Hoping to hear, what issues I need to know about so I can be ready for this meeting. And all she tells me is, I had a great day. It's so much fun. Maybe not last week with all the testing, but yeah, the kids are not worried to the level we are. They're having a great time in the school and really enjoying it. So.
Okay, then on that note, thank you, Tony. I guess we can move on to the PCOs.
Let me share my screen here. So there are 3 PCOs up for view tonight, and then 1 potential award for the monument sign. So we'll do the PCOs first. This is 163R. This is for patching walls in the 2 rooms across from the art room for $1,037. Basically, there was a miscommunication with the display installer, who's not part of Newfield scope. They came in and Jamie had thought that there was 2 displays in those rooms, but there weren't. So they had put the mounts on the wall and then had to take them off. So there's a bunch of holes and marks on the wall. So Newfield quickly patched and painted those 2 walls to make up for the fact that they were all dinged up through the display installation.
Can't see people online, so you'll have to just speak up if you have a question. But if there are no questions, is there a motion then to approve this PCO? Tony?
I move to approve the PCO number 163R for patching walls.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Steve seconds. So Tony, Steve. Okay. All in favor of approving PCO 163 then, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? And again, I can't see everybody online, so if you're gonna abstain, make sure you speak up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one is PCO 174R for $630. This is for the 2 doors in the vet restrooms by the gymnasium had one set of hardware that needed to be changed out to a different set of hardware. That different set of hardware didn't utilize the hole in the for the deadbolt in the door. So now there's just these small holes on the back side of the doors. So this is the change order presented by Newfield to provide this cover plate system basically on those two doors.
Tony?
$630 for cover plates.
That's what Newfield has indicated would be the price to do this, yes. It doesn't have to be done. This is just what the cost would be to have Newfield provide the plates.
have no choice. I guess we have to do it, but this is.
I,
this is-
Let me stop sharing so that way people on screen can see.
Okay, Chris Kiefner, I heard, and then Chris.
yeah, thank you, Tony, for bringing it up. This is an absolutely absurd expense. I think that I don't recall exactly. It was $15.38 or something per piece. No, this is not something we should do. It's something that Tony, you and I could do it. We go in there go to Mansfield Supply, get the part, and then go down there and fix it. Or cover it is all you're really doing. And done. So I do not intend to vote for this. There are many things for which we've been asked to overpay. This is a really extreme case. Clearly, they don't want to be coming back to do it. I get it. My issue is, who owns it anyway? Whose mistake was it? But regardless, this is an absurd way to spend money, and it does not have my vote. And I hope it doesn't have anybody else's.
Chris McNamara.
I'm gonna echo Chris and Tony on this one. It's a $9.60 part. Ridiculous. So I'll be with you, Chris. I'll come down with my screw gun.
Okay, so, we don't have to take a motion on this if no one is interested in making a motion, but if someone would like to make the motion, they can.
Can we make a motion to deny it?
No, it's either you vote for it.
Okay.
or-
Thank you.
Just to add emphasis, Chris.
Yes. An exclamation
So if-
point.
If there's no interest in that, we'll have to explore other ways of patching it, but Tony and Chris are gonna do that.
And to be clear, I don't believe it goes through all the way through the door. It's on the back side, so it's not like there's a hole into the bathroom necessarily.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the next one, PCO 186. This is for an additional light at the top of the elevator shaft. This came up right as the scramble to get the certificate of occupancy was done. Essentially, there was I believe this was an interpretation by the elevator inspector that there was insufficient lighting in the hoistway. So an additional light fixture and I believe it was a circuit too needed to be routed to the top of the elevator shaft to meet their interpretation of what the code was. So this is for $790.52 for the electrical work and the tube light fixture at the top of the elevator shaft. I don't think there's a picture.
So there's an obligation that we have to have the light in there per the inspector.
Yes,
Okay.
And it's already installed, correct?
yes, Newfield did it to meet the inspection requirements.
Okay, Tony.
I move approval of change order number 186 for the light at the top of the elevator shaft.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Kathy, thank you.
Can I speak to my motion?
You may speak to your motion.
It's a 700 and how many dollars? I can't read it from here.
90.
790, so it's all $800. Less than $200 more than a plate to go on the back of the door. And this is a light and rewiring. This one I'll support, but it just points out the difficulty that I had with the other one.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Oh, Chris?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, this is the kind of thing that I feel like the professionals who design elevator shafts should know this already. I don't think this is in Newfield's, doesn't seem like it's in Newfield's court at all. It's in whoever it is that designed the shaft, and the design team should have known to put a light in there.
Well, it's
And
interesting.
Super
Chris.
frustrating that it's not.
Well, in Manchester, we didn't do it. And in other places we have or haven't. It's all depends on the inspector in the place, what he wants.
If I recall, this one, there was a light, it was just not enough light. And I can speak to the fact that between 2 or 3 inspectors, you may have different interpretations of what the code does or doesn't say. I'm not going to try to rule what this one was or wasn't, but often is the case where you have a boots on the ground. If you install a light, you get your pass, and that's what Newfield did to keep it moving. So that's why I was. getting-
Especially if you make the inspector angry from some other things in the past. So
All right, so we have a motion on the floor then to approve PCO 186. All in favor, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
All right, the last procurement item is we received the proposal for the monument sign out at the front on Mungertown Road there. There was only the one bidder, Artifacts. They went out twice. Once was a couple of months ago. There were no bidders. Went out again and did some outreach. Artifacts bid on the project. They were the company that did the other gateway signs in town. And working with Derek Delage of the town, he said there wasn't any issues with their installation, and the price is in alignment with what was expected. So this is being put forward to the committee for potential award to Artifacts.
Chris?
I've forgotten what we're getting now. The sign has gone back and forth so much, and I looked in all the documents and I couldn't see an image. I know we had an issue with the size and the actual configuration, so
Yes, so
I'm
this,
sorry.
I can pull it up and I'll talk to it while I'm
Thank you.
scrolling through the 150 pages of RFP. But the sign that was discussed by the committee was a 75% reduction. So there was sort of the small, medium, large, and the medium was what was selected. And so the RFP reflects that, and I'll pull up the image here. Yes. So originally this sign was like 7 by 7. So it got shrunk to 5 by 5 after reviewing the images on the fencing.
Okay, so we have one bidder. And this is the dollar amount was, so it's a company that has worked with the town before.
Yes.
And the dollar amount is within the budget that was set up for this.
Yeah, the initial budget at the beginning of the project was, I think this line item was 20,000. We had expected it to be somewhere between 30 and 40 based on escalation. And the bid was for 28 and change, I believe.
28.9.
28,995.
$5.
Less than 29. Okay, so today, this would be actually awarding the contract to this company.
Yes.
Okay, are there questions about? Thing? Then is there a motion to award the contract for monument signage, engineering, fabrication, installation? You have a question?
I do have a
thank
question.
you.
Adam, you said that you spoke to Derek and he said there were no issues with the company in terms of the signage that has been up. It's been up for over a year now, right? Is everybody good with that? Have there been any issues with that to your knowledge, Ryan, or?
Guilty of multitasking and putting out another fire. So please repeat the question.
I was just curious if after a year of our gateway signs being in use.
Yes,
If we are happy with the work that was done, the way they've held up.
gotcha.
Sorry,
Okay.
didn't mean to
No,
put you
no,
on the spot
no.
there.
You should never assume that I'm engaged in the meeting. No, I'm just, no, so in terms, so it's probably an unintentionally multifactorial question you're asking. So the feedback, I've not received any feedback that suggests that the signs, the way the signage, the monuments, whatever you want to call them, they're not holding up well, that they're not weathering well. I think to the extent that there's concerns or other feedback there, there are a lot of different stylistic preferences out there, and that's to be expected. So I think, pretty much from the moment the gateway signage, both ends of town went in, there was certainly feedback about, different people have different eyes and whether or not it kind of fits the motif of the community and that sort of thing. But I have not, I can certainly follow up and ask our town engineer and others if they're hearing any concerns about the durability and the quality of the product. But to date, I've heard nothing but positive on that front. It's just a matter of some people might have preferred it look a different way.
Thank you. I'm sure if there were negatives, you would have heard.
I didn't say it, but I was going to say that probably would have heard by now is further evidence that this was not the way to go, right?
But Derek's input on this was, he had no problems with.
Yeah, I did specifically ask Derek and he said there was no issues with this company, so.
Okay, Chris McNamara.
Is there a plan to put a sign like this monument style at the middle school? I guess I'm still questioning why we need to have this large monument. People have found the elementary school just fine with what we've got going right now, probably.
Yes, there is a plan. This is part of the town-wide plan, and part of it is wayfinding and branding. And so there's a very dedicated group with a lot of research and time that they've spent into this. And so there will be different tiers of this work, and there is a plan, although it's not been approved and not moving forward at this point in time. But conceptually, there is plans for the middle school.
Thank you.
Chris?
I'm with what Chris just said. People find the place in any event, and it does say Mansfield Elementary School on the call it an awning. And I don't think this is necessary. I'm not a fan of the style in any case, as I've expressed before. And I didn't figure it out, but $28,000 or $29 minus $5,000, minus $5 single dollars. You get the idea. Anyway, it's for 5 by 5, 25 square feet. Yes, it's got the stone wall thing. It's an excessive amount of money. Even if it was still within the budget, I feel it's unnecessary. I'm not a big fan of branding. I do like attractive graphics, but I think the idea of towns branding, it's still not I haven't fallen into that yet. I don't think we should spend this money, whose ever money it may be. I don't think it should be spent this way.
Connie?
Well, I hate to disagree with my friend Chris, but this is one of those things that the town has been working on for several years. It is part of a project, a larger project, which is designed to encourage business development and to encourage the use of our facilities and parks and trails and historic resources and so on. Every other building in town at some point will have a sign that is part of this system. It would be ridiculous not to have our elementary school have the sign. And I know they're expensive, but it will help us set an identity for this school, which is not there now. You really, if you don't know where it is, you really don't see it because it's set so far back, and the name of the school is on the entranceway, but you can't see that from the road. So I do think this is an important addition.
Kathy?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we did vote on this.
We chose the size, but it
Okay,
had not gone out to be fabricated and installed.
okay, thank you.
I was outvoted on the size, remember?
One other thing, Randy, if I may, I agree with Tony. I think this is an important finishing piece for the project, and I personally would like to see it.
Okay, Peter?
And just to add a comment about branding, things have changed in the world. And so we have had to do a more aggressive recruiting plan, and the branding with all the candidates that we've recently hired has been mentioned in the interview process, that it brings a cohesion. It immediately links to the university, but our core beliefs, there's a value and ethos that's reflected in our design. And I think that it is important. You know, the old Mansfield way was that people would come to us. I think we have to think differently in terms of economic development and how we develop the infrastructure and even the human capital Branding is important in this world.
Here, here. Okay. All right, well, yeah, Mary.
I just wonder if there's a plan in place as I'm hearing people say different things. If there's a plan in place to do a sign for the middle school at a later point, would it be advantageous for us to wait until that same point and do the schools together? I'm just kind of throwing that out as kind of a compromise, but
Tony?
I would say absolutely not. We have a new school. Not everybody knows where it is. We need to call attention to it.
okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Just throwing it out there. Food
Yeah.
for
Right.
thought.
I understand. And the council has approved funding for marketing and doing a number of these things. We haven't approved the funding for the signs themselves yet. But there is a good deal of money in the budget to pursue this project.
Steve?
I'd like to make a motion to accept, was it Artworks?
Art FX.
Art Effects is,
There's a draft motion in there if you wanna. Or Sharon can know that that's the draft motion being made.
Steve's got it now.
Okay.
like to make a motion to award the contract for the monument signage, engineering, fabrication, and installation services to Art Effects per their proposal dated 5/15/23 in the amount of $28,995.
All right, thank you, Steve. Is there a second? Kathy? Then all in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? Or, okay, Chris opposed, and I think that's everyone. No abstentions? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, and I will reshare for the monthly invoice packet, or bi-monthly, if you will. So this is the second packet this month with the larger invoices and pay applications from Coastal, who did some additional materials testing, soils testing at the basin for us. The Collier's invoice, Granite City, who's procuring items for facilities. IMTL, our standard materials testing agent. Insalco, who is one of the furniture vendors for some of the items that they've completed. JNS Radio for the radio antenna that's been installed on the pump house. Langen, who did the ongoing HAZMAT plan for Allen and facilities, which is now complete. Red Thread for the additional lily pads that were ordered. TSKP, Weston Sampson, who does our stormwater monitoring, and then Newfield pay applications 24 and 25 for a total of $344,913.01.
Tony?
I have a question. At the very bottom, it says retainage, Newfield, and it looks like we're giving them all of it. Is this the right time to give Newfield 100% of their retained, their?
That is
requested-
not 100% of their retainage. It's 100% what they've requested. There is
Okay,
approximately 1.7 million still unbilled and retainage put together, and I think 1.4 million of that is retainage.
okay, thank you. I'm not about to approve letting them off the hook yet.
Other questions? And is there a motion regarding the invoice and payout, Mary?
I would like to make a motion to approve the invoice packet dated today, May 25th, including invoices from Coastal, Colliers, Granite City, IMTL, Insulaco, JNS Radio, Langen, Red Thread, TSKP, and Weston and Sampson in the amount of $67,331.13. And Newfield's application for payment number 24 in the amount of $266,030.22. And Newfield's application for payment number 25 in the amount of $11,551.66 for a total approval of $344,913.01.
Thank you, Mary. A second, Steve? And all in favor of approving the motion, please indicate. Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Okay, well then, thank you. That brings us to our adjournment. Is there a
I move
motion
we
to-
adjourn.
Okay. And Mary seconds that. All in favor, please indicate, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Randy.